places in this world where light shines, but nothing grows. You felt it before, that subtle emptiness disguised as comfort. The aroma is perfect, the hum of conversation familiar, the music carefully chosen to sound spontaneous. The cup is warm in your hands, yet something within feels cold. It's not the coffee that's bitter. It's the silence beneath the noise. You sit surrounded by people, and still you feel alone. Welcome to the modern sanctuary, the coffee shop, cathedral of busyness, temple of self-presentation. It was never meant to be this way. Once upon a time, coffee was a symbol of communion, an offering between friends, a pause in the day where hearts met without performance. It was never about caffeine. It was about conversation. But somewhere along the way, the cup became an accessory. The moment became merchandise, and the sacred pause became a product. The warmth that once came from human presence now comes from steam and speed. Here, spiritual energy turns cold, not because of malice, but because of misunderstanding. We gather to connect, but we come armored in distraction. We call it social, yet every face is bent toward a screen. We say we're recharging, yet the only charge we trust is the one plugged into the wall. The atmosphere hums with ambition, laptops open, dreams being monetized, and yet the deeper dream, the one of belonging, remains untouched. Watch closely. The air feels alive, but it's the kind of life that trembles with anxiety, not purpose. People talk, but few listen. Everyone smiles, but their eyes are somewhere else. Half in the past they curate, half in the future they chase. Time stretches, but meaning shrinks. The sacred rhythm of existence, inhale, reflection, exhale, gratitude, is replaced by the artificial pulse of productivity. And in this strange mimicry of communion, something holy begins to wither. We have mistaken motion for growth, conversation for connection, warmth for love. We have filled our cups, but emptied our souls. The coffee shop is not the problem. It is the mirror. It shows us what we've become: restless beings seeking awakening through stimulation, mistaking the tremor of caffeine for the stirring of the spirit. We no longer wait for inspiration. We order it, customized, extra shot, almond milk, quick. And when it doesn't satisfy, we scroll. There was a time when people entered such spaces to slow down, to think, to write, to dream. But the modern world has turned reflection into performance. Now, even solitude must be aesthetic, staged, photographed, validated. We call it mindfulness, but it's marketing. We call it peace, but it's packaging. We call it self-care, but it's self-promotion. And beneath it all, the soul shivers in the cold. This is not condemnation, it is confession, because we are all guilty of it. We all crave to be seen, to belong, to feel that we matter. But the tragedy of our age is that we seek belonging in visibility, not in vulnerability. We would rather be noticed than known. We decorate our loneliness and call it independence. We monetize our passion and call it purpose. And like coffee left too long on the counter, our once burning desire for meaning cools into routine. The temperature of the soul is measured by the warmth of its gratitude. Gratitude is what keeps the heart alive, even in a world that runs on distraction. But in these places, these modern altars of noise, gratitude rarely survives. Everything is designed to keep you wanting, scrolling, striving. The cup is never full because the craving is never meant to end. The system depends on your hunger. The colder your spirit grows, the more you will consume to feel warmth again. And yet, even here, grace waits. There is something about the stillness between sips, the quiet hum after conversation, the way the light falls across the table that reminds you of what you lost. You feel, for a moment, the ache of something ancient, the desire to sit without purpose, to speak without performance, to be without doing. That ache is not weakness, it is awakening. It is the soul knocking softly, asking to be let back in. For every cold place, there is a chance of warmth. The soul, like coffee, can be reheated not by speed, but by stillness, not by adding more, but by remembering less. You do not need to escape these places. You need only bring presence into them. A single act of awareness, a deep breath, a genuine smile, a silent prayer of thanks can shift the atmosphere entirely. The sacred is not absent, It is waiting to be recognized. The problem is not the coffee shop. It is the condition of the human heart that enters seeking energy instead of essence. We have turned spaces for reflection into theaters of distraction. We have traded sacred presence for curated performance. We have mistaken connection for display, conversation for transaction, productivity for purpose. The chill that follows is not punishment. It is a warning, the temperature drop that tells you you wandered too far from meaning. And yet, the same coffee shop can become holy ground again if entered differently. Sit without your armor of noise. Truly look at the person serving you, at the stranger near you, at the world unfolding in small miraculous detail. Notice how every cup of coffee is an act of creation, beans grown in distant soil, hands that harvested, hearts that transported, time and effort woven into the sip you take for granted. Gratitude is the fire that reheats the coldest spaces. When you begin to see this, when you treat each sip as communion instead of consumption, something miraculous happens. The air grows softer, the chatter lessens, the screen loses its hold. The warmth returns, not from the cup, but from within. You realize that the spirit never truly went cold. It was only covered by convenience. The divine never left. You just stopped paying attention. That is where redemption begins, in attention. Not in some grand religious act, but in the small decision to be fully here, to listen, to breathe, to taste, to give thanks, to treat the moment as sacred again. The miracle is not far away. It is in the present moment, hidden behind your hurry. Ambition, that word hums beneath the hiss of every espresso machine. You can almost feel it in the air, the invisible tension, the subtle electricity of people trying to matter. The world told them to chase greatness, to stay busy, to rise early and grind harder. So they did. But no one told them what to do once they got there. Once the applause fades, once the likes turn silent, once the body begins to tremble from the caffeine that keeps the soul awake, but the spirit asleep. They mistake this trembling for passion, not realizing its hunger, a hunger for something the marketplace cannot brew. Ambition is not evil. It is sacred when pure. It was meant to be fire, not fever. It was meant to build, not burn. But ambition without alignment becomes anxiety. It pushes without purpose. It turns creativity into competition, service into self-display. You feel it in these places, the way people measure their worth, not by the depth of their ideas, but by the number of eyes that witness them. Even the act of dreaming becomes performance. In ancient times, fire was tended, not consumed. It was watched with reverence, never wasted. It gave warmth, but it could destroy. The same is true of desire. When guided by wisdom, it becomes devotion. When guided by ego, it becomes addiction. Every success story has two versions, the one the world celebrates and the one the soul confesses. The first glitters, the second groans. The first looks alive, the second feels empty, because somewhere in the chase, the person stopped asking why. Why do you want what you want? Few dare to ask. The question feels small, almost childish, but it is the most dangerous and divine question in existence. It pierces through layers of illusion. It exposes where you have mistaken motion for meaning, applause for affirmation, results for righteousness. Ask it honestly, and your ambition begins to transform. It no longer runs from insecurity. It runs towards service. It no longer burns to be seen. It burns to bless. That shift, subtle, invisible, changes everything. You begin to work differently. You move slower, but with purpose. You speak less, but with conviction. You no longer crave validation, because the act itself becomes sacred. You realize that wealth was never about accumulation. It was about alignment. True wealth is not what fills your hands, but what fills your hours with peace. The richest person is not the one with the most possessions, but the one who possesses himself. But look around how easily that truth is forgotten. The coffee shop hums with people pursuing freedom by imitating chains. They grind harder, post louder, consume faster. They believe that comfort means arrival, that speed means progress. They do not notice that their restlessness has become ritual. They chase peace like a prize, unaware that peace cannot be chased, it must be chosen. Consumption is not evil, it is neutral. But in our time, it has become the language of identity. You are what you order, what you wear, what you post. We have made ourselves into brands and called it authenticity. But imitation is not identity. When you borrow every thought, every style, every belief from the noise around you, you lose the sound of your own soul. That silence you fear is not emptiness. It's the echo of the self calling you home. Stillness has become rebellion. To sit quietly, to think deeply, to feel fully, these are now acts of courage. The world will call it laziness, irrelevance, even failure. But what the world calls failure, heaven calls freedom. Stillness is not the absence of movement. It is the mastery of it. It is the point where motion becomes meaning again. Sit long enough in stillness, and you begin to notice what most people miss. The music of the room changes. The frantic tapping of keyboards begins to sound like rainfall. The smell of roasted beans becomes incense. The chatter turns into chorus. Everything is alive again because you are finally paying attention. Presence resurrects the world. The warmth returns to the cup. The cold melts from the air. You realize that nothing external ever needed to change only your awareness. But awareness cannot coexist with arrogance. To awaken, you must first bow not before religion, but before reality. Humility is not thinking less of yourself. It is seeing yourself correctly. You are not the center of the universe, but you are part of its sacred rhythm. Your success matters, but so does your silence. Your ambition has value, but only when guided by conscience. The moment you remember this, life begins to harmonize again. Humility restores temperature to the spirit. Pride freezes it. When you walk into any space, a coffee shop, an office, a home, you bring a climate with you. If your heart is cold with ego, even the warmest room grows colder. If your heart burns with gratitude, even a bleak place becomes holy ground. The atmosphere is an echo of inner weather, and gratitude, like heat, radiates. It needs no announcement. The truly thankful do not shout, they shine. They move through the world like quiet lanterns, reminding others that peace is possible. Their wealth is invisible but undeniable. They possess the rarest currency, contentment. They have learned to drink slowly from the cup of life and taste every sip. This is what the world has forgotten in its rush for relevance. That to be truly alive is to be truly aware. You can have every comfort and still be cold if your consciousness has gone numb. You can have nothing and still feel rich if you are awake to wonder. Wealth without wonder is poverty in disguise. Success without sincerity is failure dressed in gold. So when you sit in the next coffee shop, look beyond the decor, beyond the fashion of the hour. Look at the human beings, their fatigue, their hope, their silent prayers behind the scrolling screens. They are not strangers, they are reflections. Each one searching for warmth in the same way you are. Each one longing, beneath all ambition, for rest, not the sleep of exhaustion, but the rest of belonging. The greatest paradox of modern life is that we have built endless spaces to meet, yet lost the courage to truly connect. We fear silence because silence reveals truth, and truth, once seen, demands change. But change begins in that very silence. Sit with it. Let the discomfort speak. It will not destroy you. It will deliver you. The soul, once awakened, begins to reorder everything. You will crave less noise, more meaning. You will hunger less for recognition, more for righteousness. You will want less caffeine and more clarity. You will stop counting achievements and start cultivating awareness. You will no longer drink to escape fatigue, but to celebrate life. And when that shift happens, the same places that once felt cold become sacred again. The same tables, the same sounds, the same faces, all begin to glow with quiet holiness, because nothing external has changed. Only your eyes have opened. You realize that the divine never left. It was simply waiting for your attention. Moral strength does not come from the easy warmth of comfort, but from the heat of conscience. It is forged not in the glow of praise, but in the furnace of self-examination. The modern world celebrates outer strength, the power to build, to buy, to command. But the older, wiser world knew a deeper kind, the strength to resist, to restrain, to remain pure in a culture of performance. That kind of strength cannot be brewed or branded. It must be born. The moral life is a constant act of remembering that you are more than appetite, more than ego, more than flesh moving through routine. Every temptation of the age whispers the same promise, that your worth is external, that you must decorate your soul to make it visible, that you must prove your light by how brightly you burn. But light needs no permission to exist. It simply shines. The moment you stop seeking proof, you begin to live from power rather than panic. We live in a world that mistakes confidence for character. It tells you to believe in yourself, but rarely asks what you believe about yourself. Belief without direction becomes arrogance. Discipline without devotion becomes drudgery. Morality without mercy becomes judgment. True moral strength harmonizes these opposites. It acts with conviction, yet kneels with humility. It builds with ambition, but bows to grace. It is easy to shine when others watch. It is hard to shine when no one applauds. But the latter is where real strength is revealed in the quiet moments, the unseen choices, the silent victories over temptation. The modern world may not reward integrity, but eternity does. Every honest act becomes a thread in the invisible tapestry of goodness that holds the world together. You may never see the whole pattern, but you will feel its peace. Look again at the coffee shops where spiritual energy turns cold. You'll see the subtle erosion of moral warmth, not because of evil intent, but because of neglected intention. People cheat time to get ahead, blur honesty for convenience, sacrifice sincerity for speed. They are not villains. They are exhausted. They are trying to survive in a culture that tells them virtue is a luxury. But it is not. It is the foundation. Without it, all success crumbles under the weight of its own emptiness. Moral strength begins with one choice: to live by principle even when profit tempts louder, to treat every stranger with respect, not because it is fashionable, but because it is right, to tell the truth even when the truth trembles, to pause before reacting, to forgive before resenting. These small acts restore warmth to the soul. They are the quiet fires that keep humanity from freezing in its own ambition. Spiritual wealth grows from the same soil. It is not the wealth of possession, but of perception. It is the ability to see abundance where others see lack, to give thanks where others complain, to see opportunity where others see threat. The poor man who gives kindness is richer than the millionaire who hoards resentment. The wise man who wakes in gratitude lives wealthier than the king who cannot sleep. There is a paradox at the heart of abundance. The more you give, the more you have. The more you clutch, the more you lose. Because life flows like breath, it must be both taken in and given out. The miser suffocates in his own control. The generous lives light as air. Every act of gratitude expands your capacity for joy, while every act of greed contracts it. The richest soul is not the one with full hands, but the one with open ones. Think of warmth again. Fire exists only by giving itself away. Its light does not diminish by sharing. It multiplies. The candle that lights another does not go dark. It doubles its glow. That is the secret of spiritual wealth. It grows by generosity. The more light you share, the brighter your world becomes. The moment you withhold it, the flame flickers and the cold creeps in. But to give warmth, you must possess it. And to possess it, you must tend it. Inner fire is not spontaneous. It is sustained. It must be fed by gratitude, protected by discipline, guided by purpose. When you neglect it, when you trade reflection for distraction, sincerity for spectacle, the flame fades. It doesn't vanish at once. It dies by degrees. You stop feeling the sacred in small things. You stop seeing beauty in imperfection. You stop hearing the quiet voice of conscience beneath the noise. Then life begins to feel mechanical. You wake, you work, you consume, you sleep, yet something vital is missing. That emptiness is not punishment. It is a summons. It is the Spirit's way of asking you to return to the fire. It is calling you back to awareness, to integrity, to awe, for nothing burns brighter than a heart that remembers what it is here for. Purpose is not discovered. It is remembered. It was written in your being long before your ambition learned to speak. It is the same voice that stirred you as a child when you dreamed of helping, creating, loving, growing. The world's noise has tried to drown it out, but it waits patiently beneath every success and every failure, whispering the same truth. You were made to give warmth, not to seek it. The coffee grows cold when left unattended. So does the soul. Warmth requires return. You must stir it daily through gratitude, through humility, through the quiet practice of goodness when no one notices. The world might not applaud, but heaven does. And you will feel it, that subtle radiance that no caffeine can mimic, the steady pulse of peace that no performance can fake. Wealth, morality, and meaning converge in that peace. For peace is not passive, it is powerful. It is not the absence of struggle, it is mastery within it. When you are at peace, you move through chaos without contamination. You bring order where others bring noise. You create harmony simply by existing. That is the ultimate mark of a transformed soul, not perfection, but presence. Presence is what makes any place sacred. A church without presence is a building. A home without presence is a house. A coffee shop without presence is a factory of distraction. But when presence returns, when gratitude breathes through the air, when humility replaces irony, when awareness awakens the ordinary, even the smallest space becomes holy ground. You do not need to escape the world to find God. You need only see the divine in the world you've been given. God hides in the steam rising from the cup, in the eyes of the stranger across the table, in the quiet hum of life continuing despite all despair. Every ordinary moment is a burning bush, if you have the courage to look without cynicism. So let your wealth be warmth. Let your ambition be generosity. Let your moral strength be gentleness. Let your success be serenity. The world may not understand it, but it will feel it. And in a time where so many hearts grow cold, that warmth will be your witness. There will come a morning when you lift your cup, and before you taste it, you will pause. You will no longer drink out of habit, but out of awareness. The warmth will touch your lips and remind you of something ancient, that even fire can be gentle, that even bitterness can nourish, that even a small act done consciously can redeem 1,000 careless ones. You will understand that you are not here to conquer the world, but to awaken it, one breath, one kindness, one conscious moment at a time. Because the truth is this: the world does not grow cold all at once. It cools degree by degree, every time gratitude is postponed, every time compassion is inconvenienced, every time truth is softened to fit comfort. The temperature of a civilization is measured not by its wealth, but by its warmth, by the glow in its people's eyes when they speak of what matters. When that glow fades, when faith turns fashionable and sincerity turns scarce, the chill begins. And yet, the light that can warm it back to life has always been within us. You do not need to be perfect to reignite it. You need only be present. The smallest act of presence is a rebellion against emptiness. When you listen without waiting to speak, when you forgive without waiting to be asked, when you love without asking why the cold recedes, the frost of indifference melts beneath the heat of simple goodness. These are not small acts. They are the repair of the world. Redemption is not a ceremony. It is a return, a turning of attention back to the truth that was never gone. It is not earned through drama, but through honesty. It does not require you to flee the world, but to see it rightly again. You were never separated from the divine. You were distracted from it. You mistook the whisper for silence. You mistook the ordinary for irrelevant. But the divine hides precisely there in the ordinary. There is holiness in your morning routine. There is grace in the steam that rises from your cup. There is worship in the way you greet the day without resentment. The sacred is not found in escape, but in engagement, in being fully alive, fully awake, fully grateful. The truest form of prayer is attention. The holiest form of wealth is contentment. The highest form of success is peace. You begin to see that spiritual warmth has nothing to do with temperature and everything to do with tenderness. It is not loud, not dramatic, not performative. It is steady, subtle, sure. It moves through every act touched by love. It turns strangers into family, labor into service, and daily bread into communion. It is what makes the invisible visible again, the heartbeat of meaning in a mechanical age. When you walk through the city now, you see differently. The lights no longer blind you, they remind you. The noise no longer agitates, it testifies. Even the advertisements seem to whisper a truth they do not know they're carrying. You are more than what you buy. The same world that once felt like a distraction becomes your classroom. Every person you meet becomes a messenger. Every challenge becomes an invitation to practice presence. And as you move through it all, something within you settles. The old restlessness, the hunger for validation, the thirst for control, the anxiety of comparison begins to loosen its grip. You realize that you do not need to rush, because nothing real can pass you by. You do not need to prove, because what you are cannot be improved by applause. You do not need to fear loss, because the soul that knows itself cannot be impoverished. This is the beginning of inner rebirth, when you no longer seek the divine in extraordinary places, but in every place. When holiness stops being an event and becomes a habit, when joy stops being pursued and starts being recognized. The miracle was never that heaven touched earth. It was that earth was always heaven seen through grateful eyes. The great illusion of the modern world is that meaning is rare, but meaning is everywhere. It hides behind fatigue, behind failure, behind the fragile moments we rush past. It waits in line with us, walks beside us, breathes through us. The only thing missing is our attention. The world has not lost its sacredness. We have lost our sight. When you see again, you realize the truth, that wealth, morality, and purpose are not separate pursuits. They are facets of one jewel, the life rightly lived. To live rightly is not to live perfectly, but to live awake, to know what you are doing and why. To treat your existence as gift, not accident. To let gratitude guide ambition, humility govern success, compassion, temper, strength. To live in such a way that wherever you go, something cold becomes warm again. That is the final calling of a soul transformed to be a living hearth for others. You need not preach. Your presence preaches. You need not persuade. Your peace persuades. When others sit with you, they will feel at ease, though they will not know why. When they speak, they will hear themselves more clearly, because your silence will hold them. When they leave, they will feel slightly closer to God, though you never mentioned his name. That is the power of warmth. And so, the sermon ends where it began, in the quiet hum of a coffee shop, the ordinary sacredness of a cup in your hands. The world still moves quickly. The chatter continues. The lights still glow. But you are different now. You do not chase warmth. You radiate it. You do not look for meaning. You live it. The spiritual energy that once turned cold now flows like fire through your veins, calm, bright, unending. You lift your eyes from the screen, smile at the stranger, thank the barista, breathe deeply. Nothing spectacular has happened, and yet everything has, because awareness has returned, because love has remembered itself through you, because heaven has found a home in a human heart once more. The cup cools, but the spirit does not. The day ends, but the light within remains. You leave behind not emptiness, but presence. And the next soul who sits in that chair will feel it, though they will not know why. That is how the world warms again, not through thunder or miracles, but through ordinary hearts set quietly on fire. And somewhere beyond the glass, the city exhales. Morning becomes afternoon, afternoon dissolves into dusk, and life continues relentless, imperfect, divine. But this time you are not swept away by it. You walk with it. You breathe with it. You recognize that existence was never meant to be controlled, only embraced. That all of creation, from the rising steam of your cup to the rhythm of traffic outside, is part of one great liturgy, the ongoing prayer of being. The divine was never locked in temples or trapped in scripture. It was always here, hiding in plain sight. It lives in the patience of a stranger, in the laughter that breaks tension, in the quiet resilience of those who keep showing up when life gives them no reason to. God does not shout in storms. He whispers through ordinariness. And when you finally slow down enough to hear it, you realize he has been speaking all along, through every cup, every conversation, every silence you once rushed through. This is the true mystery of rebirth, not a change of scenery, but a change of sight. The same streets now feel like sacred corridors, the same people like fellow pilgrims, the same tasks like prayers in motion. The sacred is not elsewhere, it is everywhere, disguised as the familiar. The miracle was never that God entered the world, but that we finally noticed he had never left. You begin to understand that your life is not meant to be a monument, but a melody, something that echoes gently in others long after you've gone. a warmth that remains in rooms you once inhabited, a kindness that lingers in hearts you once touched. The world will forget your name faster than it forgets your energy, and that is a kind of immortality no wealth can buy. So you stop trying to make noise and start making meaning. You stop chasing the extraordinary and start sanctifying the ordinary. You stop worrying about how much time you have left and start asking how much love you can fit into this breath. You stop reaching for heaven as if it were somewhere else and realize it begins wherever you choose to be fully alive. And in that moment, that quiet, undramatic, eternal moment, you feel the pulse of something vast and kind moving through you. You understand that you were never meant to escape the world, but to illuminate it. You see that every soul, no matter how weary, carries the spark of redemption waiting to be fanned into flame. And you know that your task is not to change people, but to remind them of the warmth they already possess, because the coldness of the world has always been cured the same way, by one awakened heart at a time. A barista who remembers your name, a stranger who meets your eyes, a parent who listens without distraction, a friend who forgives. These small mercies are the architecture of eternity, unseen, unmeasured, unstoppable. As you walk out into the evening, the air feels different, not because it has changed, but because you have. The streetlights hum like candles. The passing faces glow with hidden stories. The night hums with quiet purpose. You carry no sermon, no lesson, no agenda, only warmth. And that is enough. You understand now that salvation is not a destination, but a way of being. That heaven is not found by ascending, but by descending into awareness, into humility, into love. You realize that the world is not waiting for another miracle. It is waiting for you to remember that you are one. So you walk on, gentle but unshakable, like a flame that refuses to die. You are the prayer now whispered in motion, unseen yet felt. And as the door closes behind you and the light fades, the warmth remains. It lingers in the air, in the seat you left, in the quiet corner of a coffee shop where a stranger will sit tomorrow, searching for something they cannot name, and they will feel it. They will feel that somewhere, somehow, the world has become a little less cold, and they will not know it was because someone once sat there, fully awake,